If you go down to the woods today, you're sure of a big surprise, and that's exactly what Lugo delivered round 8 of the 2025 FIM Motocross World Championship. I'm laughing early on because although I haven't introduced my co-host yet, he is seemingly beside himself with that terrific intro that ties together many facets of this podcast from every angle, which we'll get into, and that's exactly what this podcast does. It covers MXGP from every angle. Of course, we didn't do Portugal. I was sick, so we have a little bit of that to discuss as well. But overall, this is going to be an action-packed episode with so much to dissect and dive into. We can do that because of the support from Polasport and Prox Racing Parts, of course. Thank you to both of those companies for their loyalty that they have shown us on the MXGP podcast show. I'm your host, Lewis Phillips, as per usual, joined by On Track Off Road's Adam Wheeler. How are you?
Hello, Lewis. I already have lots of questions.
Okay, fire.
The first thing that springs to mind is, how are you? Are you better?
We are better, but soldiering on.
Okay, and how did you feel about getting to the climax of 2025 Supercross? Did it feel, I imagine the season passed in a blur, but did it feel timely? Were you ready for the end?
No, I'm not ready for the end, and to be honest, I'm a little bit emotional because I'm not overly motivated or ready for outdoors at this point.
Oh, well, I think that's understandable. 17 Supercrosses in 19, 20 weeks?
Well, more so the fact I really get accustomed to the facilities, the food, the drink, the hotels, the city, the stadium, the roof, the Wi-Fi.
Air conditioning.
Yes, all of those things I really struggle to part with, but hey-ho, it's out of my hands. I think I've said hey-ho a lot today. I don't know why that's my catchphrase.
Well, my other question is, how is it you know so little about popular culture, but you know the words and lyrics to the Teddy Bear's Picnic?
I don't know where that's from. Honestly, I don't know where that's from. I don't know where that's from, but it works brilliantly because Lugo was in woods, right?
It was.
Yes,
it
okay.
looked atmospheric. Yeah, I'll give you that.
If I hadn't
sort of Portugal.
If I hadn't broken, then it would have been a really poetic intro, but unfortunately I didn't have the steel to make it to the second sentence. Maybe I could have sung it a little bit more as well. But overall, I think it was a good effort. I think it was a really creative intro, and although the delivery was subpar, I think the content was maybe up there with some of our best.
Well, now that you have to pretty much give up your job as a prophet, because some of your predictions for 2025 MXGP have already fallen well off. I think, go for children's nursery rhymes and a new skill, a new field of talent I never knew existed.
Some would say that I desperately need to move on and find a new job or field of talent. So I think a lot of people would celebrate that move, and I'm sure that there would be some loyal fans that follow me to my children's nursery rhyme podcast that will
Don't
be
listen
launching.
to the naysayers, Lewis. People are always motivated by gripes rather than compliments, I think. So, they need to express them,
You mentioned my predictions. Maybe I'll just drop it now. My support group told me to do this and speak to the people I wronged, show remorse, show guilt, to help me in my steps to recovery and to move on from my addiction phase. So Jeffrey Hurlings is not, in fact, going to win the 2025 MXGP title, despite Tim being out. And I'd like to apologise for putting that on you on the previous podcast. I'm trying to be better. It's a process. And I'd just like to apologise for putting you through that because...
Well, when you started teeing this up, I was wondering which one you were going to come up with. Was it the slanderous approach to Yago Geerts in his second season MXGP? Was it the kind of conviction behind Tim Gajser when knowing full well that motocross is such a bitterly cruel sport? Or it was the Jeffrey admission of title contention?
I think the Jeffrey admission of title contention is the one that really pissed a lot of people off. So I think that's the one that I have to really address with a sincere heart and great remorse. I honestly don't remember shitting on Geerts All I remember is I wanted to shit on Geerts, like, full transparency. It was on my topic list, but podcast to podcast, I continuously remember saying to you, I want to do the Geerts conversation, but we've run out of time. So we never quite got there, but maybe we did get there, and I don't remember.
No, I think it was more the kind of, what's the correct word? The way that Yago is and the way that his social media just seems to be a complete reversal of that. And, you know, I think... Yes, he's had his injury problems, and you have to account for that. But I think there was so much promise and quite a bit of expectation, and he is a factory Yamaha rider, and then just we haven't seen any delivery of that yet.
Or maybe it all comes back down to the fact that on the last podcast I said Yamaha are becoming the laughing stock of MXGP. That could also be factored in, but yes, so much to get to. Lugo appeared on the MXGP calendar for the second time, and honestly, Spain has really struggled with MXGP and finding a venue, a home, stability ever since Belpuig went away in the late 2000s, early 2010s. I like Lugo. I think Lugo can live on as the MXGP of Spain, and I, as along with many others in the paddock, would have no issues with it. I like Lugo, even without Jorge Prado. Of course, the track is named Circuit del Mundo Jorge Prado, or something along those lines. But even without him, successful, good, great.
Yeah, what is this? The fourth round of, what are we on, 7 now? 8?
8. Of
MXGP that's been battered by bad weather. I couldn't believe it for the first MX2 moto. I mean, it was another mudder, following on from sort of Portugal and then also Portugal in 2024. I just felt sorry for sort of, the friends and colleagues that we have there. I was actually working at Le Mans for the MotoGP round, and there was 120,000 people there. The official figure was over 300,000 for the whole event, and you could feel it. It was wall to wall. But watching the motocross at the same time and trying to keep up with what's going on in Lugo, I was just staggered by the fact that this big cloud or deluge of rain just seems to follow the series around, and it's making life incredibly difficult for not only the riders but also the teams and all the mechanics, everybody that's having to clean that shit off every other week.
Yeah, you play recency bias, but I really can't remember a season as bad as this. 2012 was quite bad for rain, I believe, in the early parts. But
last year.
Yeah,
last
I guess
year had
so.
A few rainy ones.
Yeah, I guess so. It just feels really relentless this year. I don't know.
Might be that I have no idea. I could be talking Alternia. I think it's kind of summertime in Australia, or it is at the start of the year rather. So maybe MXGP should try flipping the calendar and having these kind of flyaway events like in Australia, Turkey, China, whatever, maybe sort of February, March, and get the calendar rolling, in warmer places, which was the original idea a few years ago when they signed that 5-year contract with Qatar, and there was talk of the Grand Prix of Iman.
I forgot about
Vietnam.
That one.
I think Indonesia was originally supposed to be further towards the beginning of the
calendar. Yeah, it started
calendar,
as round 2, didn't it?
Yeah, but then, if we're finding this poor weather, I mean, let's face it, the reality is it's just luck, isn't it? It could have been 25 degrees and burning sunshine. But, it just as the climate keeps getting weirder and weirder, then for a predominantly European championship, when do you run this thing?
Yeah, that is actually a good point. We did, 2016, we did Qatar, Thailand, then Argentina, Mexico. So why not do Australia, Turkey? I don't even know what the weather's like in Turkey at this time of year. And then Argentina, whatever else, and don't start in Europe until mid-April. I mean, we're May now, so obviously you're going to have to come back to Europe at some point and face unpredictable weather. But we have almost moved away from the direction that MXGP was looking to go, which emulated what F1 and MotoGP do. It wasn't some grand idea. It was just something that's become par for the course for motorsports organisers.
And also, while you continue to talk now, I want to actually check the date of the 2024 Portuguese Grand Prix, because I think that was quite early as well. May, June.
I think it was the same weekend.
Yeah, I mean, that's the second year in a row it's just been absolutely hammered by the rain. I mean, just thoughts for the the motor club at Aguilar, but maybe just move it later. Do it in July or something. Yes, you might have 30-degree temperatures, the kind of sun that made Jorge Prado wilt as a 16-year-old in his first Grand Prix season in 2017. But then, at least you've got a good chance of getting a crowd attendance there. There's not going to be this propensity for flooding. There is like a reservoir towards the back of the circuit that just spilled over into the circuit and caused a delay to the motos. The chances of that happening are less. I mean, it'd be better for people, them to count the prices of the tickets and to get some kind of revenue in. I mean, Kozar was horrible at the start of the year, and Agida for the second year in a row has just been blighted.
I did have a message from a rider this week, an MXGP rider, saying that they have no idea what's going on, but there are no spectators turning up to MXGP, and it's embarrassing. And really, it was a very random message out of nowhere. We weren't even mid-conversation. It was just like, what the fuck is going on?
Yeah, but is that true? I mean, it seemed like there was quite a few people in Switzerland, and then France is always going to pack them in.
Well, I didn't think Lugo looked that bad, but it didn't look exceptional. It certainly didn't look as good as last year.
Yeah, well, it's quite a small circuit anyway, and also, I mean, somewhere like Arco de Trento, yes, it's a very small, compact facility as well. I mean, it looked extremely busy. I mean, just the photography alone of some of the motos was pretty spectacular with this sort of wall of background of people. But yeah, it's hard to say, Lewis. It does depend a little bit on geography as well, because Lugo and Portugal, I mean, what are they, 100 miles apart? I mean, it makes sense that Spanish fans that would normally travel to Agada or the other way round, we're not going to go to two events.
Equally, you mentioned the dates and moving those around. To my knowledge, and I could be talking out of my arse here, so tell me that, Portugal is one of the lesser funded Grand Prix, and dates in June and July are come down to bidding a little bit. The most prominent organisers kind of land those summer spots that are in high demand, and then races like Portugal that are less impactful in the in-front moto racing meetings are kind of left with the scraps.
I don't know about the pecking order when it comes to money, but then I always thought Agida they rolled the dice just purely on the climate, being in Southern Europe and also deep into sort of, Western Southern Europe. You're more likely to find a pleasant sort of climate. I mean, if you go even further south in Portugal to sort of Lisbon and around there, I mean, it's such a popular holiday and golfing destination because of that steady climate. But then again, it is right on the precipice of the shores of the Atlantic. So you do get that sort of unpredictable weather fronts that just roll in suddenly. Yeah. But, they had to run it back to back just because of the distance. If you're hauling the trucks and the whole circus all the way down to that sort of westernmost point of Europe, then it makes sense to back it with Lugo. It'll be pointless to go all the way to, say, Lommel and then come back down again. It's just the importance of logistics. But why not just put those two a bit later? Try and fit them in the end of June or July, where you're pretty much guaranteed, sunny, good conditions and a good attendance.
Yeah, and fans from Northern Europe would flock to Spain in a June date because that's a vacation, as well as a GP.
Yeah, July and August. I mean, maybe it's even too hot, but then Kozar was run in September, and in southern Spain, sort of August, September time, I mean, it can be pretty brutal.
Well, to circle back to the beginning, if you go down to the woods today, you're sure of a big surprise, and that is the weather, I guess. You never quite know what it's going to do. As is a greater commentary on climate change and the state of planet Earth at the moment, which is, of course, you know me, if I can peddle climate discussion, I'll find a way. Before we get on to the specifics of Lugo and the results and all of that sort of stuff, Tim Gajser is out indefinitely. The MXGP paddock was saved by me being sick last week. Maybe it was God stopping me, because the rigmarole of Tim Gajser saying I'm in and then I'm out, and then Renault saying I'm out and then I'm in, was too much for me to bear, and I had a lot to say, but that's in the past now. But ultimately, Tim Gajser is out indefinitely. He's had surgery, first reported by Lewis Phillips, by the way, and I don't think that he'll be back by the end of the year. I think 3 months or so, but then that takes you to a point where you're preparing for the last 2 GPs, and why would he do that? So a huge bummer. I don't think anyone can ignore the fact that Tim Gajser was on his way to this championship. So this is a cruel twist of fate. It's been ripped from his grasp. But as you said, that is motocross. So what can you do?
And was it really his fault. I mean, that was something we talked about after the Swiss GP. But ultimately, it's carried a very heavy cost now, hasn't it? The altercation with that trackside bump.
I haven't asked anyone, and I think we would have heard about this if it has happened. Surprised there hasn't been more of a fallout from that, like some sort of mission statement from in front, or addressing the fact that they're going to change this or look at this in future. You know, it was mass controversy for one day, and then I feel like it's kind of fallen to the wayside.
Yes, maybe more should have been done about it because Gajser was holding the red plate. I mean, this wasn't sort of the ejection of a rider who's in 9th or 10th in the championship. I mean, this is a significant star, a factory HRC rider. I think you're right, Lewis. I mean, I haven't seen every single minute of the Grand Prix coverage since. I don't know if there's been any kind of special report by the TV crew on this, looking at track design or track build or what could be done to improve it.
MXGP TV are not doing a special report on anything. I can tell you, what's the blind person? Who's the blind pianist?
A blind pianist?
A singer. Or maybe not a singer.
Stevie Wonder.
Stevie Wonder knows that there is no MXGP TV special report on this.
No, he might not hear, he might not see, but he can hear.
That's a good point. Well, then he definitely knows also. That's a very good point. That makes no sense at all.
But there could have been. You know, I haven't seen one.
There hasn't been.
But you know, there hasn't been.
Okay. On behalf of,
I'm just saying there might have been.
I could be the woman in Bird Box. There hasn't been.
Right. Okay.
But
You're just throwing so much culture at me.
I know.
I'm really
if you go down to the woods today,
podcast.
you're sure of a big surprise. This is it. I am it. I just thought that, I don't know, I thought it would have been worthy of maybe a meeting with team managers, or maybe this did happen. Like I said, I never checked, but I feel like I would have heard about this if it did occur. But a bummer for Gajser, a bummer for Honda HRC, and funny how quickly the sport moves, because now Gajser isn't going to be champion this year. We are going to be, by the time we get to next year, 4 years removed from his last championship, 2022, which is crazy to think that, like, that seems like it's gone in the blink of an eye, that Tim Gajser's most recent championship is, a distant memory all of a sudden.
Do you think also it would be timely for HRC to confirm a new contract?
So, I don't believe it. I really don't believe it. I said this before. There are a lot of rumours in the paddock that Tim is going to leave HRC, and I literally reply to every single person that texts me that, "You're drunk, stop bothering me." But then I had a message from someone else who I trust on Sunday that said that, as far as they're aware, HRC have offered Tim significantly less money than his current contract, which that then isn't too hard for me to believe because, like I just said, Tim's older. His last championship was now 3 years ago. We know that he is the highest paid rider in MXGP.
10 or 20 points of it.
No, but he is but he's also the highest paid rider in MXGP by a little way. I don't know how to explain this to people without spilling too many details, but let's say he's a little up on Jeffrey. That wouldn't be overly surprising to me, and then maybe that does cause some intense negotiations.
Yes, I mean, if Gajser is suddenly going to HRC and saying, "I want more," or say, for example, he's saying, "I want a 3-year deal to finish out my career with you," and HRC only prepared to commit to 1 or 2, then that might be the sort of bone of contention. But you're talking about a rider who's not only the whole combination, the whole package means that when HRC go to the gate of round 1, he's going to be directly in the fight for the championship, guaranteed, because he has been since 2015. I don't know why you would give that to someone else. There's the whole thing that, Gajser can go to another team, he doesn't gel with it, doesn't gel with the bike, blah, 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 blah. But, a rider of that caliber, I don't think they're going to find anyone, to immediately slot in unless Honda suddenly say, "Jeffrey Hurling's come over here." But then they're going to be offering a similar kind of wage package. Or, you'd think Hurlings would want the banker of like 2 years to at least acclimatize and make the Honda his own. So it's just, okay, you can turn the deal down, not take the Gajser option, but then where does he go? Or who do you get in his place?
Yeah, this is why I don't believe any of this. Of course,
Lucas Coenen, perhaps.
the Coenens loom, but then equally, I've got people telling me that there's absolutely no way they are leaving KTM because they've got 2 years left on their contract, which I don't know if it's 2 years, but in my knowledge, I know that there are years left on the contract, so that also makes some sense. So I don't know, it's all very confusing at the moment. But one thing that is certain is that MXGP silly season is going to be quite crazy because off the top of my head, and I should have prepped this, Febvre's under contract, Renault's under contract, and I think that may be it as far as the top guys. Ben Watson is under contract.
I thought Renault was up.
Maybe Renault is up,
Yeah, I think Renault was up, and so's Geerts. I think, Yamaha could be having a clear
up as well. So just Febvre then?
Just Febvre and Jeremy Sewer, I think.
No, Sewer's on a 2-year.
That's what I mean. He's
Febvre sorry, and Sewer. I'm sorry,
they're the only ones locked in. And then like Koldenhoff and Burgers. I mean, these guys you would imagine would all be up at the end of 25.
Yeah, Fantic's completely open as well, to my knowledge. From what people have told me, the paddock is just full of agents and discussions at the moment.
If our good friend Roger Harvey or some boss at HRC or even like Marcus, De Freitas, HRC is lining up the Coenen brothers, and Honda do have that, MX2 factory effort now to appeal to the the smaller Coenen, then that would be justifiable, I think. If they said, bye-bye, Tim, we're giving the twins 3 years, then I would get that. Because, Honda just did it so successfully with the Lawrences. I mean, there might even be a map whereby, Lucas wins the championship or after his second year in MXGP, he's suddenly given a possibility to head to the AMA. I don't know. But that would make sense to me. But if it doesn't happen, then I don't know where Tim goes or who Honda take.
I just think that even if there is a money debate at HRC, Giacomo Garibaldi would just be like, oh, I'll figure that out. Because Tim is HRC, HRC is Tim, and Garibaldi is both. So, I just don't see a world. And like I say, I've not entertained any of these messages really from people. I've had people message me saying, "Tell me why Tim isn't signed yet." And I'm like, "He'll sign." And they're like, "You can't say that. It's May. Like, if this was such a no-brainer, he would have signed by now." And I'm like, I don't know.
I've had experiences of manufacturers where, a contract has been signed, but they've just been in no hurry to announce it or to make a press release because the rider is already under contract. So,
that's true.
There's been no fierce set of rumors that Gajser is being lured by Yamaha. Therefore, just announce it when you fancy, end of the season. So, if that's the case and Tim's already signed, then Honda are not going to beat about, they're not going to rush to get it all done. But, with Gajser out of action and maybe now sort of in full rehab after his shoulder surgery, maybe it would be good to sort of put some good news out there and, get the ball, get a bit more sort of, positivity around the camp. But, you were saying, Lewis, that you don't reckon he'll come back. I think that's a good point because obviously the last 3 rounds are Turkey, China and Australia, and that's no small outlay for Honda to do those races, even though they can. Would they put Tim's bike in the crate by then? It's feasible because there's still it's the whole summer away.
Yeah, it would be a greater attraction maybe for them to just put Kyle Webster on Tim's bike at his home Grand Prix. That would be a great marketing move for Honda. And then also you've got the nations, but then are Slovenia really going to send a team to America? Like, it isn't... The calendar doesn't work in Tim's favour to come back, unless, of course, he makes a miraculous recovery and the timeline is much shorter than we would anticipate. Last thing on Tim, 2 things on Tim, both kind of circling back to his personality. I think that it would help Tim to come back this year because I do think he's the type of rider, we saw this in 2023, that he takes some time to get back into the swing of things. So I think that acquiring data and seat time this year before next year would be helpful for him, as it would any rider. And then the silly season thing, I don't think Tim's the type of rider to leave HRC, even if there was some sort of dispute. I think Tim is the type of rider who prefers the comfort of familiar surroundings and wouldn't want to give that up, even if he has to take a pay cut.
Yes, I agree with both observations. Pay cut, how severe? It's more just about HRC following through on the next generation and, say they lock down Fernandez, who's been popping up with podium finishes for the last 2 GPs and playing that kind of B rider role quite nicely. What do? Do they stick or do they twist? And like I say, the only rider probably worth twisting for is Lucas Coenen at the moment.
Well, to add to this, I did get told by someone who heard it from someone who I really trust that Fernandez and Zanchi have been told they're out for next year, which would equal the Coenens because that's 1 450 and 1 250. But then equally, I then followed that up with someone who said the Coenens have 2-year contract. Like, how is this possible? So I honestly don't know. There's a lot going on. MXGP, catch the fever.
And also, maybe how do KTM trim their factory rider roster for next year? What do they do with Kaider Wolf? What do they do with Husqvarna? Do they become orange? As it feels like well over a year that we're talking about KTM's project and plan in sort of both Supercross and Motocross, and it's just a big fat question mark at the moment.
Yeah, it really is. But what isn't a question mark is Romain Febvre's prominence in MXGP. It arguably was pre-Lugo as Lucas Coenen dominated headlines and really put his flag in the ground. And Febvre answered in a perfect manner, but also a timely manner, because I do think that it was needed to maybe reinforce his effectiveness at the top of MXGP. And to win, even with a crash in the second moto, really reminded everyone of why he should be given the credit he deserves with a 49-point advantage over Coenen, of course.
Yeah, I mean, Febvre's got such good pedigree. I mean, apart from the season where he was hurt, as he finished in the top 5 of the championship each time. So you always have to count him in. And there are kind of, 10 years on from his debut in MXGP, where he won the title in the first season, there are echoes of that campaign where significant riders had injuries or injury problems, and he was the one that evolved so fast, picked up the results, and made such an emphatic championship season. So that's kind of playing out again. But watching Romain like in Lugo, they're just those little mistakes, aren't they, that you kind of think you can't sort of keep giving away points again, because that's another one of your kind of characteristics in the motos. Lucas Coenen is going to start gobbling back ground if you keep making these slips and giving him moto victories.
Yeah, but Coenen's going to do the same, so it's one in the same. It's a wash, essentially, in my opinion. I'd almost, if it was Febvre against Prado, I'd almost I'd without doubt agree with you, but I kind of just look at it and I'm like, well, you're both just going to do this, so that's the way it's going to play out.
I just love the irony that, Febvre won the title as a rookie, and now he's one of the oldest riders in the field. I think he is the oldest rider in the field at 33 years of age. Certainly the oldest factory rider, going against the rookie, who could usurp him and take the title this year. I mean, imagine Lucas Coenen winning the championship. It would be staggering. I mean, I know Tony Cairoli did it in 2009. And then we had Febvre in 2015 and Gajser in 2016. I mean, Hurling's, I don't want to say came close in 2017 because he didn't, because Cairoli was managing that.
No,
but he
made a run.
He was steamrolling. Yeah, he made a run. He was steamrolling the results by the end of the season. But I think this would be pretty outstanding for an 18-year-old.
I can't take credit for this, so I won't. But someone made an excellent point to me that the way this championship is going to play out is the same as 2023, but in this instance, Febvre will be Prado and Coenen will be Febvre. Essentially, Coenen's going to stack win after win after win, and it's going to look as though Coenen is making lots of grounds, but Febvre will just be there with occasional moto wins, second places, third places, and actually the gap won't shrink as much as it may be perceived.
If we were 2/3 into the season, then I'd say yeah, but we're not even halfway through yet. And 50 points is less than 1 GP. So all Febvre needs to do is say, touch wood, he doesn't. But break a collarbone or, miss 1 GP for some reason, illness or whatever, which has struck him down in the past. And that advantage just disappears.
Yeah, true. It's true. And
who's your money on right now?
Honestly, I sound very indecisive because I was hard on Coenen after Switzerland, but now I think Lugo has really reinforced what Febvre's capable of and given me confidence in his ability to just bring this home. I know he crashed in the second moto. I know he crashed in the qualifying race, but they weren't major, and I think Coenen will do the same. So I think that actually Febvre will just ride this 49-point gap to the end, and it will come down. It will end up being 10 or 20, but I don't think it will come down enough, maybe.
Well, we should be lucky if it's 10, because that means the last GP is going to be another sort of Kozar or, Turkey kind of finale. But I think it's going to be much closer than everybody expects. But I do think Romain's experience is going to win the day. I think Lucas is going to, tottle up the checkered flags. But there's going to be a couple of key motos. I don't think it's going to be like a Sexton Webb thing. But I do think, Romain will just come up with a couple of key results when potentially Lucas struggles a bit more with the 450, because he seems to have figured things out, and he's, the start of the season, he was carrying that wrist injury. So, he is in a fine vein of form. But, the first season with the 450, I think there's still some adjustments to go on. And we know how he dropped the ball magnificently in Lommel in 2024. Yes, he was still 17, still so young, so raw. But I think Romain will have the goods to see it out. That's my bet anyway.
I mean, also, if Febvre does do this, what a story for Kawasaki and Ice 1, because Kawasaki hasn't won a world title since Porcel in 07, 06, 06. Right? Yeah.
And in the Premier class? Goodness.
I don't know.
You have to go back to the 90s now?
Yeah, you have to go back to when I was in diapers.
There
was Mashio. Mashio was in there, but that was 155s, right?
Mashio was a 125, yeah. Was it Tortelli or
Tortelli.
Everts?
It had one of those, wouldn't it? Like 98, 99 sort of time.
There's been plenty of GP winners in the Premier class, like Chad Reed taking a 250cc win on the 450. Not that many. I mean, Clement Dessau, Gautier Paulin, Billy McKenzie. Then I think what Febvre's doing already is already quite special for Kawasaki.
Yes, but Kawasaki has, on the whole, under-delivered across the last 3 decades. Yeah. That's fair to say. They've been the most unspectacular of the Japanese manufacturers across the board. If Febvre does do this, I really hope that someone somewhere really leans into the Kimi Raikkonen has won a Motocross World Championship, because that could do a lot for us. So I really hope that MXGP's crack PR team is reaching out to exterior outlets with this story, asking if they'd like a piece of the pie.
I also think it'd be a big deal, Lewis, if like a Monster rider wins the Monster sponsored championship. I hope Monster Energy will really sort of engage some activation around MXGP as well.
Yeah, would this be the first legit Monster title? Because we had Febvre and Gajser, but they weren't legit. They were bought and paid for.
Yeah, Febvre was given the helmet maybe one round before he won the title in Assen.
And Gajser was 3 rounds before. Yeah.
Yeah, because HRC had a policy then of like, if you want a rider, you have to take the whole team, which I think, HRC Monster bulked at. They didn't really want that. They just wanted Tim. And then Tim also had an issue with his own personal cap. He wanted to wear his own colors, the 243 insignia, the rest of it. So it was really complicated, and it should have been much easier. But Gajser should be like a monster athlete already for like 7 or 8 years, but then it didn't happen. And then Febvre in 2015, I don't think he was he a monster rider then?
Yeah, but at the last round, that was it. They handed.
No, I mean, yes, but I mean, the team Yamaha weren't monster.
No,
back at that time.
Yeah, they gave him the helmet in Assen when he won it. I'm certain that was on a Friday. They did that whole PR and shebang.
Yeah.
So this will be the first legit Monster title in the Premier class.
Yeah, but it shows you the intricacies of these deals, because, like, for example, the fastest and greatest road racer or Grand Prix racer of all time, Marc Marquez, is racing for the Ducati Lenovo factory team in MotoGP, which are Monster Energy backed. Pekka Bagnaia, the world champion in 2022 and 2023, is a Monster Energy athlete. But Marc is kind of enforced to wear the Monster Energy logo, but doesn't have a personal deal. I think Monster really wanted to give him one because that would be like snaring Valentino Rossi or Lewis Hamilton. But because Marquez had had such a long-standing relationship with Red Bull, he was very uneasy about changing his allegiances that quickly. In the end, I think he carries the Estrella Galicia 00 beer on his helmet. So it's like Mark is kind of enforced to be a Monster rider, but he's not like the full thing. And, you know, there are similar deals you'd have to imagine in Monster Energy teams in off-road and motocross and supercross.
It just is... I don't know why I hadn't really considered that this would be the first Monster legitimate title. It's crazy. You obviously...
Maybe even in MX2, when was the last Monster title as well?
Renault, I guess.
Was he in Monster Energy back then?
Yeah, Renault was for sure.
Right.
They've had Courtney Duncan in WMX a few times.
Yes. Yeah, good shout.
So well done to them for that. No, but yeah, very good from Febvre. Like I said, I think he had to respond at this moment in time. He did that well. Now he'll go to Ernée, where he's going to have custom gear and I guess something special on the bike to celebrate the red plate at home. And all of that will be quite the spectacle. And he should win there as well because it's his home Grand Prix and he's always performed well at those. And that could really put Coenen up against the ropes again, and maybe that forces mistakes from Coenen. It could all snowball into a strategy such as that.
Did you expect this kind of season from Lucas? Did you think it would be that good? I mean, he came very close to making it 3 wins in a row.
Well, it's tough because obviously we don't have Tim now. We don't have Hurlings in Hurling's form. We don't have Prado. So if you told me all of that, then yeah, I think Coenen can beat Febvre and Koldenhoff and Fernandez 9 times out of 10. I really do. If he was doing this against a healthy Gajser, a healthy Hurlings, and a healthy Prado, then I would have been more surprised. No, I was the one pre-season that said I think I said on a prediction show or something that I thought that Coenen would be better than Renault this year. So I remember saying something along those lines because I remember you gasping.
Yeah, I still do. I still think Maxim is a more goodness, it's hard to say now, but a more rounded MXGP athlete, more experience, and I mean they're not that dissimilar in ages. There's sort of maybe 5 years between them, 6 years tops, and Coenen's only 18. I just there are mistakes there. I mean we saw him drop it. What was in the first moto or in the qualifying heat on Saturday?
Yep.
But I mean you could see the Coenen's energy and the way that he just seems to blossom or flower with like confidence when he's able to make a start and get out front. He's riding on a wave, and I still think he could be bitten a little bit by the 450 still, and maybe in some of the faster tracks. If I think say Lockett or Latvia, I think he has to be especially careful at a couple of those circuits. But it's at the moment he is the guy with the most momentum in MXGP, and I count Febvre in that group.
Yeah, and that's why I think it's particularly poignant that Febvre started to chip away at it and also fully chips away at it at the next Grand Prix at Ernée. Fernandez has had 2 podiums in a row. You are the Fernandez champion. What? I don't know if this is what we expect or we want more or this is further than what we should expect. I don't really know where to seat my expectations with Fernandez, and I don't really know why I find it so hard to take a position, take a stance.
Yeah, but for a guy who's missed most of one season, I think you need to give him a little bit of time. But I would file him a little bit in the Coenen bracket of someone who, when he makes a start, has the speed to win a moto. But then, he needs to build up some consistency. And 2 podium finishes kind of puts him into the Evgeny Bobryshev sort of, sphere for me, because a rider who's very capable and can really make it happen when it's his turn. He's not like on the same level as, say, Gajser or Febvre, Coenen at the moment, but he's building it up. I think you have to give him a bit of time. And, as a second rider at HRC, what more can you ask than sort of popping up and putting the Honda near the front and grabbing trophies? I think he's sort of fulfilling his remit.
See, I completely agree, and I think the Bobryshev comparison is good and one that I would take. But I think that there are people who expected more than this and expected him to be winning races by now and expected him to blossom on a 450. Or maybe I just misinterpreted others' excitement. I don't know.
If we were talking about 2024, then yeah, you could say that. And also, there's always a pressure to be like a full factory Honda rider. I mean, if Fernandez is not fighting for wins by the end of the season, here and there, then I think you have to question whether he deserves that place on the team. But then again, who else do you put there? And I think Ruben is still young enough to be given another chance. I wouldn't say award him with a 3-year contract, but he's like I say, he's doing the job that he needed to do. If he was 7th, 8th when Gajser out, then HRC are a little bit even more in the mire. I mean, I can remember when they had that phase, didn't they, where Gajser just didn't have a teammate for a while. People kept getting hurt. Bogus, I think, was hurt for 2 years in a row.
Yep.
Badly broke his ankle. And I can remember Roger Harvey, like the general manager at the time, just saying, well, who do we get in? What rider is available at any kind of level to come in and put the bike in a position for results? I don't know. Do you think there's anyone hanging around now that could help Ruben and suddenly sort of elevate him to the number one role and see if he could, I don't know, find some extra inspiration from that? Do you call Dean Wilson and say, come over and race some GPs for us? I don't know.
No, I think Ruben is, I think Bobashev is a really good comparison, and I've never thought about that. Ruben is just a solid second guy to me, and I think that's fine. That's good. That's great. The waters just get murky because I have heard people be extremely overly excited about what he can do in the past, and that's where maybe I've been got my back up a little bit, and I've been like, hey, hang on, what are we getting at here? Like, if he were to leave HRC to make room for Coenen, I think that Kawasaki would jump at the chance to have him partner Febvre. I think KTM would probably jump at the chance too. I think he is attractive, just not as a lead guy.
Yeah, I think, over a year ago, before he got hurt, I would classify him as one of those riders where you don't really know what you're going to get. And therefore, the ceiling for potential is, you can't see it. It's like, could this guy go on a 4-moto tear? Could he win 3 GPs suddenly? I mean, he won in Argentina when nobody expected that. So that kind of unpredictable feistiness and the strength, I mean, he's a big guy, he's a strong guy, made him, interesting. But now, working his way back and having to build up some confidence and everything else, and also now having to carry HRC by himself, there's the expectation is a lot more rigid. And I'd like to see sort of how he responds to that.
I would still just love to see Hawkmo get Gajser's bike for the rest of the year. It's not going to happen because Hawkmo is the only rider on Honda SR Moto Blues Motul for now.
Yeah.
So they're obviously not going to give up their only rider, but that would be really exciting and really deserved. But I just can't see.
I think Moto Blues is a big deal, right? I mean, Le Mans at the weekend in the sort of merchandise area, which was huge. I mean, like I mentioned, all the fans being there. There was a huge Moto Blues stand, which I was quite surprised to see.
So, it's like a dealership, isn't it? Or like an online store?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't venture in, so I don't know what was there, whether it was just bikes or it was apparel and all sorts of stuff. But, I saw the brand and thought, oh, okay, they're a big deal.
Also a big deal, Polosport. Hey, Yamaha YZ125 or 250 riders, this one's for you. If you've been riding models from 2002 to 2021, listen up, because Polosport has something that's going to make your heart race. They are introducing the new restyling kit, a complete transformation for your Yamaha, giving your bike a 2024 look without any complicated modifications. The kit includes everything you need, a new gas tank, a full race seat, an airbox, all designed to fit seamlessly. No fuss, no hassle, just a fresh design that breathes new life into your dirt bike. Polosport has everything you need from top to bottom, and I encourage you to head over there to see all that they have to offer. Quite simply, it's polosport.com, and you'll be amazed by the variety of options that are there for your machines of many colours and shapes and sizes. What?
Okay. No, your read just started off with such purpose and then sort of tailed off at the end. A bit kind of like, I don't know, your season in Supercross.
I ended okay. We had a mid-season slump, but I ended okay.
Lewis, were you ever tempted in all your many interviews, fantastic that they are, with Chase Sexton, to say, Chase, just give it all up and come over and race Grand Prix?
I can't comment on that.
Oh, why not? I'm half joking, and don't need to take it seriously.
No,
I mean, he's starting a Chase Sexton's coming to MXGP rumour.
No, He's told me before he would like to do a season of MXGP. And he's even given...
Yeah, but
he's even
Jensen
given...
Anderson said that. Justin Barsha said that. It's just, maybe it's the response to, can I get this weird European journalist to go away?
I did, this will segue into our next person. When I interviewed Chase at the weekend, it was very emotional. Very emotional. The most emotional interview I've ever done. Like, genuinely, I was like, hard for me.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
Why?
Because I don't really know why he agreed to do it. I feel like maybe he shouldn't have, but he was still processing the loss of the championship, which he really clearly was like hanging on to the dying second. So he was like processing it in the moment. And then I told him that he'd lost it by 2 points, which he didn't know. So then we had the emotional reaction to that. It was all very emotional. In that, I managed to turn it around to talk to him about Geerts' social media, which is a talent that only I have.
You wanted to cheer him up that much. You just, just wanted to invoke somebody else's bizarreness. He was struggling, and I went, well, if you think you're having a bad day, I got called out on the MXGP TV broadcast. And he said, why? And I said, I don't know. I said, I've said a lot of stuff about Geerts, but mainly his Instagram. Do you follow him? And he went, no, I've never seen it. And then True Lewis, I went, oh, it's fucking terrible. You've never seen anything like it. It's an absolute joke. So, I managed to worm that in, like truly on brand. But Geerts, he won the qualifying race in a fair, not a dominant fashion, but a fairly controlled, commanding fashion. Yes, Febvre crashed, and yes, Coenen crashed, but you can't take anything away from Geerts. He withstood pressure from Febvre incredibly well for 94% of the race. So that was incredible. And then he went 15-15. He did crash in both motos, so there is that. I don't know. I really don't know. This adds such a perplexing tale to the story. I think it can be summed up by the fact that I was surprised, when I kind of, I don't know what happened on Saturday. I was obviously busy, but when I missed the first 2 laps or something, and when I was able to get the app working and I saw that Geerts was winning, I was like, oh, okay, that's something different. And then, of course, you watch the race back and you see that he finally kind of gets a start, doesn't get into any trouble. It's that kind of soft, loamy soil as well. A little bit of kind of, I've never stood in it, so I could be inaccurate, but it looks a bit kind of like Latvia, where it's loose. There's like a top film, and underneath it's a bit kind of hard. Maybe even a bit like Arnhem. So, that kind of terrain I think would suit Yago a little bit more than, say, the hard pack of like a sunny Portugal. But yeah, and then, he sort of reverts back to what we've seen so far on Sunday.
Do you know what? Just coming to the track point, I know it's not the same soil and all of that. I'm just talking generally the vibe. There's parts of it with the camera shots and stuff that give me Matcham's vibes.
Oh, okay. No, I think the terrain is way different.
No, but I'm ignoring that. I'm more saying like the trees and I don't know. It gives me, I don't know. No, okay.
Washougal?
No, because see now I've got to go back to the soil. No, I don't know. It's just something about it. I saw something and I genuinely was like, oh my god, that could be Matcham's. I don't know. No one knows.
What other circuit are there with trees in MXGP like that? I mean,
well, here we are back to
the good one.
Planet Earth culture again. Can't stop me.
I miss Lierop. I think it was one of the most glorious Grand Prix tracks there were.
Yeah, I love Lierop.
The riders weave around a little stadium section and then disappear off into the woods. And you kind of have to listen to the commentary, and it's just like a big loop, full gas, big sand. That was special on the GP calendar. And then of course you don't get any more woody than Namur, which we talked about before, which I kind of detest as a racing stage. But on the current sort of slate, there's not really that many more kind of leafy circuits.
As Michael Jackson once sung, "What have we done to the world?"
Right, okay. Michael Jackson now. Could we go back to Pixar instead? Actually, that's a bit of that's a Michael Jackson infantile link we don't need.
Yeah, that's what a segue. I honestly don't know. I'm surprised that Geerts won, but I'm also surprised that he went 15-15.
Yeah.
I'm surprised on both ends of the scale. Someone did.
Why? Why are you surprised he went 15-15? I'm more
Because he's
surprised
better.
that he won.
I mean, he won the qualifying race, but so I thought that would translate to a 9-11, which maybe it would have without the crashes. But it was just a harsh return to reality.
Maybe he just paid for it. He paid for the mud. I mean, the second motor was kind of dry. I mean, the sun was out and the track looked brutal in terms of the bump and just some of the ruts, especially coming off the jumps. But yeah, he obviously didn't get the starts that put him in those positions, and that's maybe one of the big failings so far in his MXGP term.
Yeah, it is a tale of starts through this year.
Same for Hurlings.
Yep. Yeah, Hurlings, you could argue, is Hurlings getting back to his regular self? Is he? Well, he started outside of the top 10 in both motos, so there's a hint of the real Hurlings. It's nice to see.
Absolutely. I mean, when he starts winning motos or coming back from those 10th positions, then the comeback is complete.
Yes, if he starts second, then this isn't the real Hurlings and something's awry.
Something we need to find out when we get into the paddock eventually is how different his race bike is this year to what he had last year or in the past, because he does seem very much like a rider who's racing testing. You would think the healthy Hurlings over the winter would have an improvement on the starts because he's not doing himself any favours.
Once again, this is a public call to action. Jeffrey, if you're out there, you can come on this podcast. If you've got an issue with Adam, we'll get rid of him for the day if that's what's holding you back.
Get rid of me.
If that's what's holding you back and I'm not aware of some sort of beef, let me know. If it's me, I'll leave and you can talk to Adam. If it's both of us...
Maybe it's just a podcast thing.
If it's both of us, we'll both leave.
He's done Gypsy Tales, hasn't he? But I haven't really heard many other podcast appearances.
We want you, Jeffrey. We need you. We crave you.
I think he's waiting. Well, I don't know about that. But I mean, maybe he's just waiting until sort of some decent results come up again.
We love you. No. But also, any comments on I hope you're watching Lewis in the Geerts win? No? Anything? Do we need to address that?
I thought you were joking when you said that because I didn't hear it. I don't know. Paul was having a moment, perhaps.
Well, I was watching. And I was watching for him to go 15-15 on Sunday as well. So, but for some reason, there didn't seem to be an insistence of me watching that one, which is bizarre. Anyway, moving on. MX2?
Wait, just to finish on Yago, do you give him another year in Yamaha?
I really don't know. I really don't know. And if he doesn't stay at Yamaha, I really don't know where he goes either. I think the qualifying win helps, and that is now going to be something to point to, which in reality, very few riders achieve that. So that is really a crowning achievement. But if it continues with 15, 15, 12, 9, 13, I think you've got to turn your back. But I would expect Hans Korvers, who owns Kimia, which is a factory MXGP team, he is very good at looking after guys. Pacharel, he was a personal sponsor of Watson. I think he still is even. So I could see Hans saying, like, Yago, we can't do this, but go to this Yamaha team and I'll do what I can to help you, or something along those lines, Like, that seems like a realistic path to me. But I honestly, I think if you're Yamaha, you need to make some serious changes, because I even said to someone at the weekend, I think it is an indication of Yamaha's lack of proactivity.
I think both work.
Okay. Words are hard. That Renault has been their star rider now for X amount of years, and he's barely finished races. Like, surely you need to react to that and be like, we need a guy to sit next to Renault who will finish races and also be on the podium. They kind of just sat back watching Renault riding the roller coaster of Renault without really reacting to it. And this is their time now because I do think you're right. I think Renault is up to just react and figure this out.
More important than that, there's no big personality or rider coming through, which always seemed to be the case with Yamaha. There was always somebody, in MX2 bubbling away, whether it was Renault, whether it was Geerts, should have been Watson. Jeremy Sewer, was a rider that they signed, at the 11th hour, and then emerged to become sort of like one of their leading figures. It seems like, Thibaut Benistan, I don't know. I mean, is he someone that's kind of half-halving it in an MX2, and then suddenly you give him a 450 and he can produce the goods?
With all due
But there's no
respect,
kind of...
so Beniston ages out of MX2 at the end of this year. If Yamaha sign him for the factory team, I think I'm going to lose my mind.
I don't think they will. I mean, I think, T-Bolt had his chance in that squad and they probably won't want him back unless Yamaha strong arm, which I don't think they're going to do to like Hans Corvers in the setup.
Well,
but maybe Yamaha just go big. Maybe they do say, Jeffrey, Hurling, KTM aren't giving you what you want. Here's a contract. Or, if Gajser is out to be replaced by the Coenens HRC, then they plump for Tim. Somebody like Calvin Verlandren, I'd say here's another year.
Yeah, I would,
because he's filling in that second rider role. If they keep 3 riders, I'd give Renault another year, and but for Yago, it's tougher. I would put him more, say, as the second rider at Fantic. Maybe somewhere where he can just try and learn and develop, and not have to worry about talk of factory contacts or idiots like us saying he doesn't deserve another chance or whatever.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with all of that. There were, of course, murmurings as well that Yamaha were in the Coenen discussion, maybe not as heavy a favourite as HRC, but they are in there somewhere having conversations. So that exists at least. But yeah, MX2?
Yeah, wow. I really want to know where your money's for this one, Lewis, because it's getting a bit fruity up the top. I mean, what was it? The points? I mean, Kai barely has a points gap.
Yeah, I mean, I still pick Kai just because he's kind of been the mainstay throughout this year. I think at points you could doubt Längenfelder and you could doubt Adamo, but I don't think you've been able to doubt De Wolf yet, which means something.
Yeah, but they're all tripping up. I mean, nobody's doing like a Lucas Coenen. I mean, they're all making mistakes and they're taking points off each other. I mean, Liam Everts, would sort of pop up with a win and then disappear the next GP, and then he's up there again fighting for a podium. Adamo is on a great run of form. I think he has like 4 podiums in a row or something. But then, he still showed that like on Saturday, there are weaknesses there. I think it's MX2 is quite intriguing at the moment if you look past the flaws that we've spoken about with the quantity of riders in the gate. I just think the quality of the riders is pretty good. They're all kind of developing or they're evolving to a point where they're just scrapping.
So who do you pick?
I really don't know. I'm tempted to say Adamo.
Yeah, I can see that. I think Adamo, I picked De Wolf, but I think Adamo would be my second pick.
Yeah, and like Längenfelder is just like accumulating points with like ease. He's not sort of shining either, but he's still second in the championship.
Längenfelder is very much Adamo. They are from the same playbook, except Adamo has maybe broken out a little bit this year to become more of a consistent winner.
Yeah, more consistent.
Dare I say Längenfelder is the Adamo of 2 years ago.
Yeah, and like Sacha Coenen as well, who just scares me every time I watch him race. He did the predictable thing in the second motor of leading and then falling off. He got on the podium as well, second podium of the year in Lugo, after the first one being all the way back in the first round in Argentina, where you thought, okay, it's Sacha's turn to shine in MX2. But he's going to be another one who I think he's 6th in the championship. I don't know if he's realistically out of it. I don't have the points to hand, but he could be somebody that's taking points, Lewis, off maybe Kai De Wolf or Liam Everts, because he'll have that obligation to Red Bull KTM.
Do you think Coenen will ever be a world champion? Let's say obviously we think he's going to go to America at some point. If Coenen rides out the entirety of his MXGP eligibility, do you think he would be a world champion? Or, I guess, give a percentage chance? Because I think I'm at the point now where I'm just like, there's no way.
Yeah, this is his 3rd season in MX2, and there doesn't seem to be much progression. You can see the physical progression. He's still only 18.
Could you argue it's gotten worse? I think it's gotten worse since last year.
I think so, yeah. He had won 2 GPs by this point, I think, last year.
No, his wins came in June. But still,
okay, it was close.
I still think we're going backwards as far as quantity of mistakes and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. He just seems so anxious. I don't know if it's driven by his brother's success. that kind of slight inferiority complex. I don't sort of know them well enough, but it seems that way. I mean, somebody somewhere, Red Bull K must be saying to him, look, calm the fuck down, as we've said before on the podcast, because he has the ability to start and get out front and just dominate things like his brother did last year and is kind of doing in MXGP. But these mistakes, it must just be a concentration thing, Lewis, and you'd think that would be easier to fix than, say, a rider that isn't quick enough who suddenly has to transform his whole training and preparation regime to find that extra speed. So I'm kind of tempted to say, yeah, he could win a lot of GPs, which might convert into a title. But it's at the moment he's just like tripping himself up.
Yeah, I guess the counter argument is Tim figured it out. So if Tim figured it out, why can't Sacha? Kind of cut from the same cloth as far as crashes early in their career. I think you could say as well, the way that DeWolf won, copy and paste everything that was said about Febvre, because to come from 11th, or even further back from that, I think, in the second moto, to get 4th and salvage a GP win, that is quite assertive. That says something about how he's always going to be there even on his bad days, which he has been again this year, very much so. I think 7 out of 8 podiums. That is his strength. And I think what helps him in this title fight is, unlike last year, there isn't another rider who's going to reel off win after win after win. So, if anything, his path could be easier this year than it was last year, because he doesn't have to go up against that.
You don't think so? I mean, it'd be easier for him to analyze and sort out Lucas Coenen's vulnerabilities or his strengths. But now he's like, well, shit, Längenfelder's fast this weekend. How do I deal with him? Then 7 or 6 days later, it's suddenly Adamo.
Yeah.
I think it's a little bit... The field of opposition being bigger doesn't make his job any easier.
No, maybe not easier, but maybe it's more clear-cut. Like, you just go out and do your best and you win. Whereas you don't have to be like... You don't have to count points as much, because it's just a case of, I just have to beat these guys who I can beat, rather than having to manage the bleeding and assess the bleeding.
True. Or just like focus entirely on one guy and worry about, your race progression in relation to him.
Yeah.
If you think, well, there's 3 that's surrounding me this weekend, I'll just like plug on with myself, because who knows what they're going to do. Maybe it's easier for Kai to focus in that way. I don't know. There's 2 dimensions to it, isn't there?
But do you think Kai is better than last year? Because I don't know about that either. I think in some ways he's developed as a racer, but purely as a rider, I think he's worse than last year. Not worse, a tick off of last year.
As a rider, I see him a little bit more conservative.
Yes.
But, I think there's less pressure on him. He's been a bit more calm in race scenarios. He seems like a bit of an elder statesman of the class, which is ridiculous for a guy. Was he 21 or 21 this year? I think he has that sort of extra maturity, which, bringing the title and having sort of the red plate and everything. I mean, he seems much more at home and comfortable with it, and is able to manage situations because of that. So you can almost like feel his superiority sometimes, whereas last year it was always a bit on edge.
Yeah, I think he definitely has that aura around his competitors as well. I think they all look at him as like the man, which is a valuable trait, I would argue. After our last podcast, which seems like an eternity ago now, I did do some digging, and it turns out you were right. I guess Längenfelder's going to leave KTM.
Well, that was just the gossip.
Oh,
but
okay, I guess the gossip.
I don't know if it's true or not. Where's he going to go?
A lot of people seem to think Triumph.
Okay. I mean, he would have been someone that Yamaha could maybe have invested in.
I think if you're Längenfelder, though, I think you'd rather go to Triumph.
How many years has he got left in MX2? 1?
I don't know. It can't be that long. It feels like he's been around a while now. I honestly have no idea how old he is.
Well, you look it up. I mean, while I talk about Triumph, but I mean, haven't they got McClellan for another year? Or
No, McClellan's up. McClellan's up, but Fares has got another year.
Ah, right, okay. I knew one of them was being kept. And the Triumph 450 program, is that something that we know is going to start in 2026?
Yeah, Harrop's confirmed. Harrop's locked in, and I think, as far as I can work out, it is still just going to be one rider, so just Harrop.
Oh, right. Well, because Längenfelder would have been another. It could be a good fit for Triumph there, because that's like Geerts, that natural progression where you think, okay, give us one more year on the 250 and MX2, and then we'll guarantee you the second year with a step into, like the 450s.
Längenfelder just turned 21.
So he's got
2
more seasons. Yeah.
Längenfelder needs to be world champion at some point.
Last German world champion.
Roxon.
Yeah, 2011.
Yeah. And I don't know if there's really
Okay.
another German coming. Längenfelder is the great hope. But
Tom
no.
Cock.
Yeah, maybe. Sure. Maybe. Yeah. Okay. If you want to go down that road, I'm not going to stop you. Anything else from MX2?
No, I think that's it. I feel more motivated to switch on the MX2 moto these days than the MXGP. But MX2 could also have an injury crisis, so it's a bit of a moot point.
Yeah, maybe we need to start flipping this around and doing more MX2 at the start than MXGP, but we can get to that. What you should get to, dear listeners, is pro-x.com to see all that Prox racing parts have to offer. Of course, if you're American, that's Pro-X. If you're European, that's Prox. A cultural difference there, something that we can't quite agree on for some reason, the two continents. But either way, what doesn't change is the sheer quality that is available there for your machine, no matter the year, make, or model. And you could head to pro-x.com and put in the exact details of your bike to see all of the parts that they have available. There is a wide array of options, and not only are they grand in their selection, but also their quality. This is the same parts that privateers around the world use to compete with factory machinery. So the upgrades that you can have will be very beneficial to your racing. And once again, if your clutch starts slipping, then a brand new set of goggles really isn't going to help you. So head to pro-x.com to see all that is going on.
That was a great read. Supernatural.
But that wasn't a read. That was off the cuff.
Well, yeah, I thought it was great.
Oh, thank you. Not as good as if you go down to the woods today.
No.
I really wish I'd held that stronger, though, to be honest. I'm really disappointed in the break.
I wish you'd sung it a bit more, It carried a bit more of the melody.
Yeah, but you would have been so shocked that it wouldn't have worked because you would have lost your mind. So I've also got to pander to your make sure that you're comfortable, Got to bring the best out of you.
Goodness.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's
I
guess they've made changes to the track, I heard.
Have they? Goodness.
Which they seem to be doing a lot.
Well, when you say Erne, what's the first three things that come to mind is your famous, how can I put it?
Oh, no.
Don't shoot the messenger role.
I was a monkey with a microphone.
Rider dispute. Yeah, the monkey, yeah. And then, of course, Motocross of Nations, Fever, and Rain.
Rain?
Yeah, I don't know. I just have memories of being cold and very wet, Erne. And also, do you think it's a good idea? Of course, it's a good idea because French fans are some of the best in the world. But having two events on French soil, I mean, it's very rare to have like Saint Jean and Erne in the same calendar in the same year,
especially in the first half. I think we are living a very weird calendar at the moment. We've had 2 Spanish rounds. We're just about to have 2 French rounds, and then Portugal is there as well alongside the Spanish rounds. We're kind of just going in circles a little bit, which is 2 Italian rounds if you want to count Sardinia as Italy. We're just kind of spinning in circles. It'll be nice, I think, to get to Latvia, get to Tuchenthal, and get out of this little pattern that we seem to have dropped into.
Well, Kimi Ring might be interesting. I mean, I think the calendar feels very samey. And of course, like the weather doesn't help. I mean, I don't know what it was like for you, Lewis, but I remember getting to MXGP and when it was raining and cold and everyone's just like zipped up the awnings and hiding away, the motivation to get stories and go and talk to people were just like, was in a puddle. I can remember thinking, why am I here? What am I doing here? There's just that much harder to sort of get things done. So I don't miss it.
You're on for Germany, aren't you?
I am, and I'm crossing my fingers it's not going to be miserable.
Oh, wow, that's closer than I thought as well.
Yeah, it's a couple of weeks, I think.
Oh, yeah, well, I'm going to have to send you a list of assignments for that. I've got a lot of questions I want answered.
Oh, wow, okay. Well, I mean, I don't want to become the most unpopular person in the paddock in my first GP of the year.
No, you can report on behalf of Lewis Phillips. You can, in a press conference, you can say, Adam Wheeler from Lewis Phillips.
Yeah, the MXGP podcast. I might be hauled out of the room.
No, I think we're fine. I think
so. I don't think I'll be able to get a coffee in Yamaha.
Why?
But, I'll have a go.
That's at the end of Monsters Inc.
Here we go.
Here we go. Just back by popular demand. You know, Monsters Incorporated was a big, scary, rah thing.
Yes.
That was the monster that Yamaha was. And then at the end of the film, it turned into a laugh factory. And that's what Yamaha is.
So they turned from this powerful, scary force into a bit of a energy.
Just lots of jokes and like red noses and plates spinning and so you're fitting. The point is, it'll be a great time when you go there for a coffee. A lot of laughs.
I will turn that round and say that in Monsters Inc., didn't the laughing generate much, much more energy than the scaring? So Yamaha could be on the edge of something powerful.
And that was exactly my point.
Okay.
I can't believe you took the words out of my mouth, but that was exactly where I was getting to.
Have you booked your flights for Lommel, Lewis?
No, I need to figure that out. I need to figure out this project with Hurlings and Tommy as well. I kind of have dropped the ball on that a little bit. I've got a lot to do. There's a lot going on. It's overwhelming, to be honest. I'm a little bit overwhelmed. Emotional, almost.
Get your priorities straight.
And that's Hurlings.
Make a
always.
list.
That's always Hurlings. So that's good. Lommel it is. Right. Thank you to Polosport and Prox for their support of this podcast. As always, thank you to everyone for listening. Once again, apologies for missing last week. That was solely my doing. I'll try to do better in future. I am the laughing stock of this podcast. But we will be back in 2 weeks' time. There's a weekend off now.
Wait, Ben Watson. We didn't mention him in this podcast at all, so I'm making sure I'm saying his name before you sign off.
Well, I actually did that on purpose because I didn't mention Sewer.
Oh.
We didn't mention Hurlings, really. We didn't mention
Ben. You could have
Ben.
briefed me then before we started recording.
Well, no, I just thought that I'd try and give the people what they want, and that's less of Lewis and his...
Well, I mentioned it, so there we go.
But he is he is riding really well. We need better starts. We're working on that. Zach Osborne is now a beta ambassador. So I messaged
really?
Zach. Did you not see this?
Okay. No, I missed that one.
I
just saw that Zach was being resurrected in terms of profile after the riders hitting each other at the finale of Supercross races.
Well, that's true. That I guess that caused the beta news to be overlooked. But he is the beta USA ambassador, so I immediately messaged him. Didn't say congratulations, got straight to business and said, can you fly to Europe and fix the starts? And I think there may be something there.
And did he reply?
Yeah, I think there may be something there. So stay tuned. We may have a bit of an army forming, but if we can get Ben out of the gate, it'll be bloody great because he's actually riding really, really well at the moment. And the starts are just stopping that from shining through. But I see it and it warms my heart. Like E.T., just my chest glows every single time. Insane amount of references in this podcast.
Yes. Yeah, too many.
Maybe we should...
You say you're busy, or I just don't know what you're doing. I think you spend all day on YouTube.
Maybe we should do a bingo card for everyone, and then they can cross off every reference they hear, and if they get a full house, they win a prize.
Yeah, or just a drinking game. You must down a shot every time there's a proclamation of love.
That's true as well. There's a lot to go. We're not scratching the surface of the exterior possibilities with this podcast. We're stuck in a box. We're talking and we're leaving. There's much more to be done here. We need to, like Monsters Inc., we need to figure out that there's more energy to be developed on this podcast. So we're going to figure that out.
We'll be back after the French GP.
Oh, yeah, that. Yes, thank you, everyone, for watching and listening. We'll be back in 2 weeks to discuss Erne, the MXGP of France, or whatever it's called. I actually don't know. But we will see you then.